Welcome, family and fellow peacemakers. It's so good to see you all. Been looking forward to our time together this morning, and hope you all got the email. I'm a little extra nervous today, but excited as well about our topics of discussion. Before we move into the questions concerning our topical issues, as I was thinking more about, and I reread our last chapter on gently restoring. Remember, we're in the third G now. The first one is to glorify God. The second one is to get the log out of my eye before going to someone. And the third one we're in now is to gently restore. And as we talked about, and as many of your comments last week indicated, this is not a quick process necessarily. It is not easy. It is nothing that we can dictate or predict how it may go as we gently restore and reconcile. But I did think back about concerning my own life, and in going to people specifically and trying to encourage and lift up and gently restore in some cases, that it hasn't always turned out as I would hope. And with God's graciousness and his continuing transformation, I have gotten better at being his instrument in those regards. But I got to thinking, regardless of how things turned out, and what I want you to hear is, I have never regretted going to someone. If things ended up well, if things ended up in a pause and give time for both of us, or if things were reconciled very soon, and care and repentance and relationship was restored, however it turned out, I have never regretted going to someone. But there have been times that watching a situation or seeing something do something and thinking, oh, I hope they don't do this, or I hope they don't do that, and I neglected to go to them. Those are the times that I have regretted and thought I should have done something. I should have reached out. I should have asked how they were doing. I should have listened, but I did not. So I had seen a need to repent, seek God's forgiveness, and then to do what I could. And sometimes I had waited too long. But those are my regrets, that I did not go to gently restore. And so I leave that encouragement with you, that even though it's difficult, even though it's uncomfortable, that God will strengthen us and help us through every interaction with each other as we gently restore. And I need it at different times, and you may need it. And so what blessings come when we do that? So don't let Satan get in the way of, well, I don't know what to say or how to say it. It may just be something like just seeing how things are going. And so I leave that encouragement with you as we depart from our normal study from the book, The Peacemaker, and as we continue into current topics we are dealing with. But along those lines, I also want us to be able to look at a chart that I found that I will make some copies of and leave at the church building, that I found on the Peacemakers Ministry website. that helps us. It's similar to the slope, the slippery slope. But notice on the left, have I escaped? And on the right, how have I attacked? I may escape with silence or emotional withdrawal or relational suicide. This just isn't worth it, so I'm not even going to make any attempts. I'm pulling out of the situation. And on the other side, have I attacked with gossip or slander or verbal or physical assault, or as it's illustrated here, relational suicide or homicide? Have I damaged, have I killed our relationship? But in the middle, how can I make peace? So as we stay on this path of being peacemakers, from Micah 6 and verse 8, what is required of me? Micah asks, to act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. And this serves us in today's discussion. This serves us in every interaction and our efforts to be peacemakers. So I will probably bring this up again, but for now, let that be a reminder and something that I'll make some copies. You may want to stick it on your refrigerator, on a bulletin board, to help remind us. I need visual reminders personally. The email that I sent out had to do with the questions that our elders had asked us to discuss. And concerning that, the passages that I had included with that are Colossians 3, verses 1 through 4. Sorry, I'm trying to share my screen. Romans 14 and 1 Corinthians 10, which we have read a couple times during our study. But I got a text from Austin Mullen that said, not sure why, but I would encourage you to read Proverbs 18. So I got that when I got up this morning, and guess what I did? I turned to Proverbs 18. And thank you, Austin, for that encouragement. As we think about our viewpoints, our feelings, our opinions, let's see what the wise man instructs us here, beginning in verse 1 of Proverbs 18. And think about how this might apply to current issues. And I would appreciate your input on verses that catch your attention as we read this together. We'll read down through verse 19, please. It says, a man who isolates himself seeks his own desire. He rages against all wise judgment. A fool has no delight in understanding, but in expressing his own heart. When the wicked comes, contempt comes also, and with dishonor comes reproach. The words of a man's mouth are deep waters. The wellspring of wisdom is a flowing brook. It is not good to show partiality to the wicked, or to overthrow the righteous in judgment. A fool's lips enter into contention, and his mouth calls for blows. A fool's mouth is his destruction, and his lips are the snare of his soul. The words of a talebearer are like tasty trifles, and they go down into the innermost body. He who is slothful in his work is a brother to him who is a great destroyer. The The name of the Lord is a strong tower. The righteous run to it and are safe. The rich man's wealth is his strong city, and like a high wall in his own esteem. Before destruction, the heart of a man is haughty, and before honor, humility. He who answers a matter before he hears it, it is folly and shame to him. The spirit of a man will sustain him in sickness. But who can bear a broken spirit? The heart of the prudent acquires knowledge, and the ears of the wise seek knowledge. A man's gift makes room for him and brings him before great men. The first one to plead his cause seems right until his neighbor comes along to examine him. Casting lots causes contention to cease and keeps the mighty apart. A brother offended is harder to win than a strong city, and contentions are like bars in a castle. And then in verse 24, a man who has friends must himself be friendly, but there is a friend that sticks closer than a brother. Any verses here that catch your attention as we consider current events and current topics that affect all of us?
Steve?
Yes, go ahead, John.
One that kind of fits the broad picture here and not specifically really to the application we're going to make, but it still apply some. But in verse 14 is a verse that I guess thought about a lot, and particularly in how we deal with people. But it's, it says, a man's spirit will endure sickness, but a crushed spirit who can bear? And actually, I use this with my students at work quite a bit in dealing with life and schooling and going through difficult times. But when we think about our makeup, I mean, we have a mind, we have a body, and we have a spirit. Mm-hmm. And those are our three essential components, and we have to keep those three things in balance. People that are in school think that all they have to do is use their mind, and they can neglect their body through lack of exercise, sleep, wellness considerations. But if they let their body run down into unhealthy situation, that ends up affecting your mind. And we don't take tests well when we haven't slept the night before. So these three things are interrelated, and we have to take care of all three parts of that, I think, in a deliberate way. But what it says here, I think, brings out is that our spirit ends up being the most important of those three things. If we take care of our spirit, we can manage a lot of trauma in our mind and in our body if our spirit sustains us. And over the years, I guess I personally have found that to be true. There have been times when I've let my body and health run into the ground. I've had times when, I've not taken care of my mind well. But if my relationship with God is sound, I can get through those other things. But if my spirit is broken, we're shut down. No amount of mind and body can sustain a broken spirit. And so, as we're dealing with peacemaking, one of our concerns, at least one of my concerns, is that we have to be aware of other people's spirits. And we can use words and we can use actions that just devastate other people. And sometimes we are absolutely clueless as to how much damage we have done, how much damage I have done by using words inappropriately or actions inappropriately. We have to be extremely cautious and careful with our spirits. And there are people that are down in their spirits. Their spirits are weak. They're just wasted away. And that's not a time for reproof and dealing harshly with someone. We've got to provide nurturing and care and concern and God's wisdom to those people. So anyway, as we're dealing with how we interact with one another, let's be really careful not to crush each other's spirits, because a broken spirit, who uh, who can bear? Anyway, to me, there's a lot of thought that can go into that verse.
Yes, amen to that, John. Thank you so much. That we can do more damage if we don't consider the other person as we gently, carefully, thoughtfully, humbly listen and restore. So thank you for that. Any other verses that catch anyone's attention specifically?
Steve, I would suggest if you,
Yes.
the whole context deals a lot with control of the tongue and the ear.
Mhm.
And again, the key elements in any relationship or in any situation is to understand, which is also something that's covered in multiple verses here. If we're virtually anytime we're in a situation like this, we've again already set our agenda. That's where we're generally in trouble. Now, again, if your general agenda is just to restore, that's a good thing. But oftentimes we're set in exactly how that has to be done. And we often don't even really understand what caused the situation to begin with, because we haven't listened carefully and made the correct assessment. So again, throughout Proverbs, that's one of the themes that is consistently covered is control your tongue and your ear, listen carefully, and many things will be resolved just from that aspect. Listen and then try to conduct yourself in a manner that is just and merciful.
Yes. Thank you, Jerry. It springs from verse 13. He who answers a matter before he hears it, it is folly and a shame to him. So if some of you had trouble hearing Jerry, he was talking about the key to understanding in this whole context and listening to understand first. And it reminds me, you may have heard me say it, and I will say it probably throughout this week especially, is I don't know what I don't know. I see some things, I make judgments on some things, but he who answers a matter before he hears it is folly and shame to him. Verse 13. So let's make sure that we don't assume that we know what's going on. So thank you for that, Jerry. Appreciate it. Anyone else?
Steve,
Yes, go ahead.
also just in going to verse 1, a man who isolates himself seeks his own desire. When we're dealing with situations like we're talking about now with building and COVID and that kind of thing, we can be isolating ourselves while talking to others by only talking with or looking at things that agree with us.
Mm-hmm.
And not seeking out information, seeking to understand why others feel the way they do, and showing that grace, and not just getting built up talking only with people who agree with us and can tend to work things into a tizzy and lose sight of how much there are other perspectives.
Yes, thank you, Mary. Appreciate that. Yeah, if I've got a position, I can find information to support that. But is that all that there is? And to continue, Cindy sent me a sticky note to continue that. In verse 2, to Mary's point, a fool has no delight in understanding, but in expressing his own heart. So sometimes we hear the phrase, don't confuse me with the facts. I have already made my mind up. And so, and I may have some facts, but I most assuredly probably don't have all the facts. Mary mentioned our first two questions for this morning. And so I hope you took time to look at the verses and passages that Romans 14, 1 Corinthians 10, all deal with our liberties and our consideration of each other. And in my notes, as I was writing these questions out this morning for to share, look back and listen to Andrew Bean's lessons. It was a two-part lesson on unity in the church. Some things for us to consider and think about. And so one of the reasons our elders have asked us to go through this study of Peacemakers this summer began with construction of a new church building on our current property. Steve Presume sent out an email at least a few weeks ago, it may have been more than that, given an idea of what the layout might be. And so as we think about this, and as you think about your preferences, what are some expectations that you have? Do you have some assumptions that are going to be included in the building? Or what are some concerns? The elders have asked for our input in that. And so are there any things that you have thought about or considered? Or just assume, well, that'll be the way it is? Anybody brave enough to jump in first? All right, I'll start. I think it would be nice if I didn't have to teach a class in the auditorium. But if there ends up being a class in the auditorium, I will do my best to bring us together and encourage participation and connection with each other. And so, yes, some things would be nice. And now that I got this handy dandy camera working, it would be nice to have a USB port in classrooms and a projector that I can plug in and use my limited technical ability. But if there is no USB port in the classrooms and projectors, then I will move along in some other fashion. And so, what are some things that you have thought about that would be nice, but also recognize that they're placed in a priority list? Anyone?
Hey, Steve.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, I've thought about just because I've heard a lot of comments here recently about the building, and I don't know. I guess somehow or another, I don't know. I think I'm hearing that there may be some consternation about about the building itself, and I don't really even know, but I do know that when you appoint leaders or you elect leaders or however leaders come about, we task them with we give them the task of making these type decisions. And what I consider is number one, I wasn't here when a lot of the groundwork was laid, but I do know there was a group of brothers or a committee, if you will, that met with, they did all the groundwork. They met with the local government, and they, all these things they have to consider. So from my perspective, I trust our brothers. I trust that they have our best interests in mind. Now, whether or not, uh, it's like making any investment, there's a risk involved. And, so therefore I pray for the brothers that they have the wisdom that is necessary to make this decision. But what's important to me is, number one, the building is not the church. The building is just a facility that the church uses. So I don't put a lot of stock in that. I've worshiped in buildings that are akin to my tool shed out there. It keeps the rain off of us. We have a place to sit that's comfortable. It facilitates the teaching of classes and having worship services. So, I think it's important that we keep all of this in the right perspective. And it certainly should not be something that we should fall out over in terms of our attitudes and spirituality and things of that nature. um and that's just where I am on it.
Yes, I think that's a powerful observation, Eric. As I was talking to Steve Presume initially about some of these things, we discussed this was a major concern and a real concern for our elders. But in light of COVID-19 and the racial unrest and things that are being said and done in very disrespectful ways on many fronts, that, as Eric said, the structure, the layout, the floor covering of our meeting house has been moved to a much less confrontational priority. And maybe God is helping us to see these are the things that are truly important. And yes, trusting those who have been more involved. My encouragement was to have men and women on the committee, because women see things that I have no idea about and have no vision toward. And so I'm grateful for that. Cindy's grateful for that, that there's a perspective in that regard. And so thank you, and I mentioned in the email, thank you to all of you who have spent time and effort and energy. And for those of us continuing to give, so that this is a possibility for our church family as God blesses us, let's make sure that we are continuing with our responsibility to glorify God in that way also. But yes, keeping things in perspective. Thank you, Eric. Anybody else?
Steve, this is Shelley.
Yeah, go ahead, Shelley.
I was just going to say something pretty much along the same lines as Eric is, my background in the medical field, and then having grandkids and having parents that are older. There's certain things about a building I would prefer. I think one level's great. Bathrooms on one level's great. A bigger nursery would be wonderful because of all the babies that we have back there. A basement for storms is a good idea. But when you really think about it, in 2008, the kids and I went to Honduras on a trip. And Bible class and worship services, for the most part, were in a field with people with machine guns around us to keep us safe. And when you think of that perspective, why am I arguing about where the bathroom is located or what color the carpet is when there are people that are willing to gather together outside in need of protection, and we have the comfort that we have?
Yes. Yes, traveling helps us to see how blessed we are and how much we take for granted. Thank you, Shelley, for that perspective. Anyone else? Well, what I'm hearing, Jerry and Steve and Jeff, is that there will be no issues with the building because of how grateful we are for God's blessing us, for your oversight, and for the work of all involved. So whether I sit on one of those metal chairs in the back building or have something different, we will be grateful.
Steve,
Coming back together. Yes, go ahead, Andy.
it looks like Mike has a comment. Mike?
Hey, Steve. Hey, so something I was thinking about is we're spending a lot of money, and whenever we get into money situations, especially when there's a large group of people like this, you know, people have their opinions, and that's kind of what you're talking about. But at the end of the day, once it's built, whatever we build is, whether it's exactly what Steve sent out, or it's a modification of that, or it's something completely different, not every one of our family, of our 250 to 300 people that are currently attending with us, are going to be happy. There are going to be people that are still not 100% happy with the building. The bathroom's not big enough, or this isn't big enough, or you know, there's a door missing from the storage room. You know, something, just little minor things that people are just not going to be happy about. And what we've got to realize is some of that is fixable. You know, if we don't think there's enough classroom space, that may be fixable. We subdivide some of the classes to make some of the classes smaller. Some of it's not fixable. If the bathroom's not big enough, that's not fixable unless there's a lot of reconstruction. And so when we're looking at it and we want to complain to people, or we want to say, maybe not complain is the right word, but maybe if we want to make suggestions for how to improve things, maybe we need to, in our minds, prioritize what is doable and what's not doable. If it's doable, maybe bring that to whoever is in charge of building maintenance and say, hey, this is something I'm thinking now that we've got this building and we're in here that we might want to change. But if it's something we can't change, maybe it might be better just to, you know, let it go. Just to kind of say, well, you know, we'll be thankful for what we've got. We're thankful for the bathroom is, you know, 3 times the size of the old one. It'd be nice if it was 4 times or 10 times or whatever you feel. But it can't be done reasonably. And so prioritizing that in your own mind is probably something that's really important, especially when it's something like this with so many people, because no matter what, not everyone's going to be happy. Everyone's going to want something different. And some of it's going to be stuff that we don't know about until after the building's built and we've walked through the physical building.
Yes, thank you, Mike. Appreciate that. And it gets back to our peacemaking study of, is this really worth bringing up? And it may not be, but if it is, then share that with someone who's on the building committee or one of our elders, and someone who has a response for you. Or there may be reasons why the restrooms are, well, I know there are some reasons why the restroom is not 10 times bigger than it is now, but yes, compromises in these matters of judgment and opinion is key. Which takes us to, we have 4 minutes and his timer went off, but at least let's introduce with the question concerning COVID-19. There are varying views as to how serious it is. Have we blown things out of proportion? Should we have shut the country down? Should we have just let things run their course? There is so many ideas and thoughts along that line. And for us, for part of our discussion is, how do you see us coming back together? What does that look like to you? And the elders are really wanting to know what we think in regards to this. We got 3 minutes, so you can't get yourself in too much trouble. So,
Hey, Brother Steve,
yes, Rita.
I'm not sure that my statement really applies to what you just said, but it is something I've been thinking about.
Okay.
It would be helpful to know what the cleaning approach to the building will be.
Okay. The cleaning approach, is that what you said?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Yes, that is a consideration of what is our cleaning process going to be as we approach assembling back together. Even just questions or concerns. But yes, Rita, I always appreciate hearing what's on your mind. Thank you.
Hey, Stephen,
Anybody?
just real quick, my major concern would be for the elderly and for those who, you know, who are diminished in health. You know, that's my major concern with coming back together. I don't have a lot of faith in some type of magic cure for this virus, just because we've had viruses. I'm not even sure we have a cure for the common cold. I welcome it. I hope I am wrong, but I just don't have much faith in that. And I think this virus, as all viruses, is just going to be around. Viruses don't really go. They lay dormant, perhaps, but they just don't go, as far as I know. And that's my major concern. I think for a certain group of people, demographics, age group, and everything is, hey, no problem. But I am concerned for the elderly.
Thank you for that. And as timing would have it, in April, I officially became one of those groups of concern. I turned 65. And so Cindy and I have been very careful. And so I appreciate your care and concern for us. And that is something that our elders are concerned about too. So appreciating that. And it is 10:40. So think about, we will continue this question. Go ahead.
Hey, Steve.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just one comment based off of Rita's question. And I said anybody can go there, but if you go to the indiana.gov website or the cdc.gov website, they have recommendations for worship. And I'm sure, given the way the elders have been going, they will try to follow those. But just an example on the cleaning, one of them would be sanitation of all high traffic areas before and after service. That's just one recommendation, but there's a whole list that they have laid out.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ian. Appreciate that. So yes, this is not an easy decision for our elders, but I'm so grateful for their care for us and their carefulness. They asked us to stop assembling before the state did, and they have postponed a meeting together physically until they hear from us. And so please let them know what your cares and concerns are as they help guide and lead us. Thank you all. Look forward to our continuing study Wednesday, and please think about the other questions that I sent out in the email concerning the racial unrest and also how we interact in Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and other private or social platforms. So love you all. Look forward to our time together as we learn from each other and how to love each other more. Steve out.